Hello vinyl community, Bradley here. This video is going to be in response to a thread by Robert Z. I think it was called "Turn the Damn Music Off," if I'm correct. Basically, it's about what other hobbies do you have other than collecting vinyl. I have many. One of them is I love history. I like American history, Ohio history, local history, and I do like politics, although not nowadays, if you know what I mean. But anyhow, a few years ago, I got into reading biographies about American presidents. So I will go through my presidential library and maybe say a brief paragraph or so describing, the president or whatever. So anyhow, the first one, the guy is not a president, but he falls right into this whole kind of like American founding fathers. This book is by Walter Isaacson, a great historian. Benjamin Franklin, An American Life. Excellent book. Franklin, like I said, one of the founding fathers, was a inventor of many things. Just a few of the things. Lightning rods, he invented those. Bifocals, I believe. Of course, his experiments with electricity was a basis for, figuring out electricity. And many other inventions. And he liked to tinker around. During the War of Independence, I'm not sure if he was in Great Britain then, or France. I cannot remember. But anyhow, he spent a lot of time in France. He loved France. He loved it. He loved good food. He loved good wine. And all the chicks adored him. He was a chick magnet. Not particularly handsome, I don't think, but and he had a son who, during the War of Independence, he was on the British side. So they had a huge falling out and whatever. So that was Benjamin Franklin. Okay, next book. A very good biography. Theodore Rex by Edmund Morris, about Teddy Roosevelt. Teddy was, in my opinion, one of our very top great presidents. He did many things. The Panama Canal, he pushed that to be built. He broke up a lot of monopolies, antitrust. He created the national parks system, along with many other things. So Teddy Roosevelt, one of the very top presidents, in my opinion. Next book, which I have not read this book yet. It's probably 150 pages. It's about an Ohio president, James A. Garfield. Ira Rutkow. He was assassinated. I do know that he was a very stand-up guy. And if he wouldn't have been shot, he might have been one of our best presidents, I believe. So I will have to finish that. Okay, the next book. This may be my favorite biography of American presidents, written by one of my favorite historians, David McCullough. This is John Adams. There's David McCullough. You've probably seen him. Anyhow, John Adams, what was he, a Quaker, I believe, from Massachusetts. He was our second president. Only served one term. He ran against Thomas Jefferson for his second term and lost to Thomas Jefferson. Jefferson and him, they were complete opposites. Adams was more of a Federalist, while Thomas Jefferson was more of maybe a states centered, you know. And this is an excellent biography. John Adams, he might have been the first president to live in Washington, D.C., I think. So he would skinny dip every day in the Potomac River. The president, just go down to the river. Oh, well. Anyhow, he was a very interesting man. Along with this next man, James Madison, written by Ralph Ketchum. He was, what president was he? Probably fourth or fifth, maybe. One of the founding fathers during the War of 1812, I believe. Yeah, right. Yeah, 1812. Right after Jefferson, I guess. So probably fourth president, maybe. Dolly Madison. That's his wife. You know, he guided the Americans through the War of 1812, which could have destroyed the American dream. So he was a founding father. Very good book. Next book, A Life in Full, Richard M. Nixon. I am not a crook. Written by Conrad Black. Well, I don't know. If he wasn't a crook, he was whatever. He did some good things. He opened the doors to China. The EPA was created under his watch. Nowadays, you would call him nowadays he would be a liberal. But back then, he was kind of like a progressive Republican. He did some good things, but he did some bad things, and the bad things outweigh the good things. He continued the Vietnam War for an extra 4 or 5 years. You know, that was not good. And then, of course, Watergate. That was not good. So, you know, what can I say? Next book, another Ohio president, Warren G. Harding. Before Watergate, he probably had the distinction of having the most corrupt presidential administration. He was a newspaper owner from Ohio, and that he got elected president. And actually, this book right here, see who that was written by? John W. Dean. That is John Dean, Nixon's personal lawyer. John Dean spent a lot of his youth growing up in Marion, Ohio, the home of Warren G. Harding. Very good book. I think Harding's legacy might be changing a little bit for the better, but I don't know. Okay, the next book. This is truly a really good book. Once again, written by David McCullough, is called Truman, simply Truman. Harry S. Truman. I think he was probably, he had one of the hardest presidents, administrations of anybody. He had to end the World War II, drop the atomic bomb, made that decision. Communism overtook Eastern Europe. He had to deal with that. Russia got the bomb. China got the bomb. Berlin, the Korean War. I mean, this guy had so many issues coming at him. And I think he did a pretty good job. Kind of a simple man, but excellent book, Harry S. Truman. Next book, written by Jon Meacham. I will show Jon Meacham. You may have seen him on TV. This is American Lion, Andrew Jackson. Andrew Jackson in the White House. Jackson, he did some good things and some very bad things. He was one of the first men from the West, which back then was Tennessee, Kentucky, you know, just across the Appalachians. That was the West. He opened up democracy to more people to vote, but his legacy on Native Americans was terrible. Before him, America kind of coexisted with the Native Americans, but during his administration, he had the, Trail of Tears, forcibly relocating Indian tribes, and they died off by the thousands. So, I don't like him that much. Next book, I bought this a few years online. I had no idea. Actually, it is a children's book. I had no idea. But it's William McKinley, our 25th president. Another Ohio president. Another Ohio president that was assassinated. So, like I said, this is a very small book. It's got some good pictures, you know. Whatever. So, not too much information in there, but I would like to read a good biography. Okay, I'll only have 2 more books here, so hang on. This one, written by Doris Kearns Goodwin, a very good historian, is called The Bully Pulpit. So this is about Theodore Roosevelt and William Howard Taft. Taft, another Ohio president. They were kind of joined at the hip early in their thinking and all that. But there was a fallout eventually between the two, which was very bad. Like I said, Theodore Roosevelt was a very progressive Republican, and Taft started that way, but he kind of backed away from that a little bit. But 2 very interesting men. Now, the last book is written by Kevin J. Hayes, The Road to Monticello, The Life and Mind of Thomas Jefferson. Excuse me. Jefferson, an extremely interesting man. He was more of a more of a states' rights person as opposed to like John Adams, which John Adams believed in the federal, a strong federal government. Jefferson was a very good writer. Speaking wise, not that much. He knew how to write words and make profound statements. And I will say, he did, what he said and what he did were two different things, All men are created equal. I believe he wrote that line. Now, he had slaves, and he believed in limited federal government, but during his administration, the government bought the Louisiana Purchase, which was, it doubled the size of America. Little, And another interesting thing is, since this is the last book, like I said, John Adams and Jefferson they became heated rivals. A lot of bad blood. But during their later years in their lives, they started writing letters to each other. And I'm not sure how many letters there are. There's hundreds of letters. They would just fire off letters and, back and forth. So, both men were founding fathers, John Adams and Thomas Jefferson. Well, they both died on the same day, which that same day was July 4th, 1826. Exactly 50 years to the day of the signing of the Declaration of Independence. These two founding fathers, they died on the same day. And supposedly, Adams, on that last day, he knew he was going to die that day, pretty much. So one of his last words was, "Thomas Jefferson outlasts me." Well, what he didn't know was that Thomas Jefferson actually had died a few hours before John Adams. So John Adams was wrong. He outlasted Thomas Jefferson. So very, very interesting man. So I hope you got a little history lesson here. People should know history so they, don't have to repeat all that stuff. So anyhow, that's my contribution to Robert Z's thread. So this is Bradley, and I will catch you guys later. See ya.